For the second consecutive summer, Steve Yzerman was one of the busiest GMs in the league during free agency, and for the second consecutive summer, I'm not sure how I feel about the Red Wings free agency as a whole. There's some signings that I really like, some that I don't like, one that I'm really iffy on, so in this video, I wanted to give you guys my thoughts on the Red Wings 2023 free agency, assuming that they're done. Steve Yzerman already had his media availability where he addressed questions regarding the free agency signings, which usually does mean he's done. He's not going to make any more signings. So before I give you guys my thoughts and break down each individual signing, let's take a look at the entire list of players brought in by the Red Wings during free agency, going in order from cheapest to most expensive. Goaltender Alex Lyon was brought in on a 2-year deal with a cap hit of $900K. Forward Christian Fischer, 1 year, $1.25 mil. James Reimer, another goaltender, 1 year, $1.5 mil. Forward Klim Kostin, 1 year, $2 million. Decided to include him even though he was technically brought in via trade, but the Red Wings still had to give him a new contract. Forward Daniel Sprong, 1 year, $2 mil. Defenseman Justin Holl, 3 years, $3.4 mil AAV. Shayne Gostisbehere, defenseman, 1 year, $4 mil. And JT Compher, forward, 5 years, $5.1 mil AAV. That is a lot of new faces. Now let's go through these and dive a little bit deeper, and I'll give you guys my thoughts on how I'm feeling about each signing. Let's start off with the two goaltenders, Alex Lyon, 2 years, $900K AAV, and James Reimer, 1 year, $1.5 mil. With both Alex Nedeljkovic and Magnus Hellberg becoming UFAs this offseason, it was expected that Steve Yzerman was going to go out and address the backup goaltending position. Figured he wasn't going to spend too much and go splurge on one of the bigger name goalies on the market and give out any long-term big money deals, and that's exactly what happened. James Reimer being the more expensive of the two goaltenders signed by the Wings, and James Reimer is actually coming off of probably the worst season of his career, an .890 save percentage for the San Jose Sharks in 43 games. Now with that said, yes, the San Jose Sharks were a very poor team in front of James Reimer, and he played 43 games, which at this point in his career is probably more games than James Reimer should be playing in a season. Prior to this past season with the San Jose Sharks, throughout his career, James Reimer has been a very consistent, solid backup option, sometimes even a good 1B option. This is a signing that I have absolutely no problem with, given the fact that it's just a 1-year deal. It's probably going to be non-consequential one way or the other. The Alex Lyon signing, I was a little bit surprised by. I figured Alex Lyon would be looking for an opportunity where he would be, a solidified backup. In this situation in Detroit right now, he's third on the depth chart for the Red Wings in net behind James Reimer and Ville Husso. Lyon was obviously a massive story for the Florida Panthers down the stretch this past regular season. The Panthers likely don't make the playoffs if not for Alex Lyon. This contract, as well as James Reimer's contract, are both just one-way deals, so I'm curious to see if the Red Wings are going to carry 3 goaltenders on the main roster for the majority of the season, or if they made these signings so that they have some internal competition for that backup goaltending spot during training camp and during preseason, and whichever guy wins the spot, maybe the other gets waived and sent down to Grand Rapids, potentially claimed off waivers. So we'll see what happens, but overall I feel like 2 pretty solid bets on cheap deals for that backup spot. Moving along to the next signing, forward Christian Fischer was signed to a 1-year deal with a cap hit of $1.125 mil. Not really a whole lot to break down here. Fischer is a depth forward, kills penalties, that kind of thing. Does have a little bit of finishing. He scored 15 goals as a rookie back in 2017-18, had 13 goals this past season for Arizona in 80 games. If Fischer can give the Red Wings double digits in goals, playing on one of the bottom 2 lines, be a solid penalty killer, I think this will be looked at as a successful signing. Was a little bit surprised to see the signing in the first place, given how much of a logjam the Red Wings have in terms of forwards. They have like 17 NHL caliber forwards on the roster, but again, internal competition is good. You don't just want the young guys to come in and basically walk on to the team and be given roster spots. You want them to have to earn those spots, so it should make for a very intense training camp and preseason. Moving on now to the next signing, we have Klim Kostin, who was brought in via trade and signed to a 1-year, $2 million deal. Originally, when this trade happened, it was Yamamoto and Kostin for future considerations, and I was actually a lot more excited about the Yamamoto part of the return than Kostin, just given the fact that Yamamoto has more offensive upside, was only 1 year removed from a 20-goal season, but as we know, the final year of Yamamoto's contract was bought out by the Red Wings. It was a move that confused a lot of people. I don't think it had anything to do with the Red Wings not wanting to use up that cap space on Yamamoto. I think it just came down to them wanting the roster spot. But when it comes to Kostin, Yzerman clearly liked him. He did really well this past season in a 4th-line role with the Oilers, a career-high 11 goals and 21 points in just 57 games. He's also very tough to play against. He's hard-hitting, so he addresses a need for the Red Wings. They were very soft at times this past season, especially after the trade deadline when Bertuzzi was is gone. So I'm excited to see what Kostin can do in Detroit on a 1-year deal, maybe get a little bit bigger of a role than what he played in Edmonton this past season. We'll see. Next up, we have my favorite signing that Yzerman made during free agency. Daniel Sprong is brought in on a 1-year, $2 million deal. Sprong is a player that I had on my wish list of players that I wanted the Red Wings to bring in heading into free agency. Was honestly a little bit surprised to see that all Daniel Sprong could command was a 1-year, $2 million deal after the season he just had in Seattle. I know when you look at his career as a whole, it was an outlier. It was his first real big breakthrough season, but he was fantastic in Seattle. 66 games, 21 goals, 25 assists for 46 points, and that's playing fourth line minutes. Sprong averaged around just 11.5 minutes of ice time per game. He was one of the most efficient players in the league this season at top 20 in goals per 60. Now, do I expect Sprong to put up those kind of per 60 numbers again? No, of course not, but if he plays a full 82 game season with the Red Wings, I don't see why this is a guy who can't hit the 20 goal mark again. And for a team like the Red Wings who are starved for goals, they only had 3 20-plus goal scorers this past season in Dominic Kubalik, David Perron, and Dylan Larkin. This to me is a perfect signing. Moving on now, we have my least favorite signing that Yzerman made this offseason. Justin Holl is brought in on a 3-year deal with an AAV of $3.4 million. I understand the signing, I really do. Justin Holl is a right shot defenseman. Detroit had a massive hole on the right side in the top 4 behind Mo Seider. This free agency class was really weak, especially when it came to right shot defensemen, so there wasn't too many options to choose from. Even with that said, I just think this is way too much and way too long of a contract to pay a player like Justin Holl. This is a player that I think would have no problem being a serviceable bottom pairing defenseman, getting like 14 to 15 minutes of ice time per game, but that's clearly not the role that the Red Wings envisioned for Justin Holl because you don't give those kind of defensemen these contracts. I'm rooting for Justin Holl, I really am. Obviously, I hope I'm wrong about this signing and I hope he does fantastic in Detroit. I do feel like it's definitely going to be good for Justin Holl to get away from Toronto where the spotlight is constantly on you, especially when you're, a right shot defenseman playing as many minutes a game as he did in Toronto. So we'll see what happens. Again, I hope I'm wrong. I hope Justin Holl does really well, but I don't have a lot of faith in the fact that he's going to be able to live up to this deal. Maybe I'd feel a little bit better about it if we didn't already have Ben Sherratt signed to such an atrocious deal. Next up, we have another defenseman signing here. Shayne Gostisbehere was brought in on a 1-year, $4 million deal. Left shot defenseman, but Gostisbehere did say he is comfortable with playing the right side, which I think played a big part in the Red Wings signing him. If I had to guess, I think the Red Wings blue line on opening night is going to look something like Wallman, Seider, Sherratt, Holl, and then Mata Gostisbehere. Gostisbehere is an uber-talented offensive defenseman, 92 points combined between the last 2 seasons with Arizona and Carolina. This guy makes stuff happen in the offensive zone. In the defensive zone, he makes stuff happen as well, but not good stuff for his team at least. Due to his defensive deficiencies, he is a player who often plays sheltered minutes at 5-on-5, and that's kind of what I expect him to play in Detroit. Get third pairing minutes at 5-on-5, but 1000% this is a guy that you give the keys to either the first or second power play unit because I think Gostisbehere immediately becomes Detroit's best power play quarterback option on the roster. Yes, even over somebody like Mo Seider, just given pure offensive abilities. I like this signing, I really do, especially for a team that needs an injection of offense, definitely from the blue line as well. I think a 1-year deal for a player like Gostisbehere is perfect. If the Red Wings season doesn't go as planned and they're out of the playoff race around the trade deadline, this is somebody that you can definitely look to move, as we saw Carolina give up a third for Gostisbehere last season. And now finally we have the biggest signing made by the Red Wings during free agency. JT Compher is given a 5-year deal with an annual cap hit of $5.1 million. This is easily the signing that I am most torn on. I like the player JT Compher. He addresses a need for the Red Wings. He's a right shot center, but man, this signing is eerily similar to the Andrew Copp signing last offseason, and obviously Copp's first season in Detroit did not go as planned. Wasn't even able to crack the double-digit mark in goals. I know Copp isn't a guy that's expected to be a big-time goal scorer, but over $5.5 million, you need more than that. JT Compher is coming off of a career year with the Colorado Avalanche, which was a little bit of an outlier when you look at his career as a whole. He had 52 points this past season, 17 of which were goals. His previous career high in points, just 33. Obviously, I think a big reason for the jump in points, the jump in production, was because he had to play in a much bigger role than he likely would have been in if Colorado didn't have all the injuries they had this past season. If the Red Wings get the JT Compher from this past season for the next 5 years, even the next 4 years, maybe he tails off in the last year of the deal, I think this signing is a massive success. But I'm just not confident in the fact that that is the JT Compher the Red Wings Wings are going to be getting, at least that kind of offensive production. This is a guy who throughout his career has notoriously been a very solid defensive forward, but you don't give pure defensive shutdown forwards these kinds of contracts. Detroit is banking on Compher keeping up that offensive production. If he goes back to being a 30-ish point guy, even if he still is putting up fantastic defensive metrics, then this signing is a disaster, especially considering you're already paying Andrew Kopp, 5.6 mil for the next 4 seasons or whatever it is. I'm curious to see what the Red Wings center rotation looks like. Obviously you have Larkin number 1. Is Compher going to be the new number 2 center, and then maybe you slide Andrew Kopp to the wing where I think he's a lot more comfortable, then have Casper as the 3C if he's ready, Veleno as the 4C, or if we're just going to see Larkin, Kopp, Compher, Larkin, Compher, Kopp down the middle, that 1-2-3. So we'll see what happens, but yeah, pretty much my overall thoughts on the Compher signing. I like the player, but I'm very iffy about the kind of deal that was given to him. So that is going to wrap up this video breaking down all of the Red Wings free agency signings. As always, I want to know your guys' thoughts, especially if you're a Red Wings fan. Let me know how you're feeling down below in the comments, or if you're a fan of one of the teams that these players came from, let me know kind of your scouting reports on these guys, if you feel they're worth the deals they signed, all that kind of stuff. If you guys enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave it a like. That's the best way to show your support. And most importantly, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this all summer long, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll talk to you all soon.